Hello, everyone. This is Dave, and here we are with chapter 24 now. Just wanted to give you a brief introduction to the last two verb tenses that you'll learn this year. So we've already covered present tense. I'll write these down here. Present tense, imperfect tense, perfect tense, and then last was future tense. So, in order, these are like I am walking, and then I was walking, and I walked, or I have walked, and then future, of course, is I will walk. Now, pluperfect tense, for those who are interested, comes from the words plus quam perfectum, which means more than perfect, if you can believe that. So what it does is the pluperfect tense goes farther into the past than perfect tense, and I'll explain that in a second. Future perfect tense is action that is completed action in the future is the way to think about that. Now that sounds bizarre too. Completed action in the future. So something that will have been completed, been done by some future time. I should back up. The way to translate pluperfect is had been done or had done or something like that. The word is had for pluperfect, and the words are will have or future perfect. So we're going to jump right in with pluperfect first. So I'm going to erase this. I know that was a very brief introduction, but let's take a look at this, and then 24b is what we'll look at first. So this is the pluperfect tense. Now, Marcus also, or two, was amazed, stupuit, although he had seen. Now, you remember I just said had is the operative word for pluperfect tense. He had seen the circus before. So he had seen is the way to translate pluperfect. He had done this, he had done that, he had seen, he had walked, etc. So what happens is you take the third principal part. Now, I talked about principal parts, and here's an example once again of principal parts of verbs. You've been seeing these in vocabulary lists. You don't have vocabulary tests the way my regular classes do, so you're sort of on your own as regards like how to memorize or notice or recognize these things. But verbs usually have four principal parts, and this third principal part is what we'll be using to form pluperfect tense. So, amavi, third principal part, and what we're going to do to that is we're going to take everything except for the I ending there. E means I, like I loved. I did love, I have loved is what this word amavi means. But we're going to chop off that I, and we're going to have this. Now, amav here is called the perfect stem. Onto this perfect stem, we're going to use these, we're going to put these endings. So we're going to have, for example, amav and then eram. I'm going to join those together, obviously. Amaveram, which means I had loved. And then we can do amav. Again, there's the stem, but here's the ending, eras. You had loved. Amav erat. He or she had loved. And that goes all the way down through eramos, eratis, and erant. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but these are the imperfect forms of the verb sum, or esse, which is to be. And these get attached onto that perfect stem. So it's composed of two parts. The perfect stem, which comes from that third principal part right there, minus the letter I. We chop that off, and onto that are added eram, eras, erat. And when we see these forms, we use the word had. I'm going to make sure you have a link to a video for pluperfect and future perfect tenses from Latin tutorial probably on the home screen for week 28, which as usual because of Italy I am getting slowed down on doing, but I'll do that today. So this is how to form it. That's how to form it, and this is how to translate it. Had. Remember that word had. So with that in mind, let's take a look at 24b. And I'm going to give you the first, well, I'm only going to give you the first two here because I don't think this is all that hard. And also, I want you to have a chance to show me that you can do it. And if I do 3 out of 5, that's really like I'm doing more than half your homework here. So we're going to focus on the first two. So Eucleides pueros ad urbem mane duxerat et omnia eis demonstrabat. So you identify the pluperfect verb and explain how the action it describes was completed before the action of the other verb. So I'll walk through that too. You don't have to explain how the action it describes completes before the action of the other verb. This is to me just sort of, if you get it, then you don't really have to explain it. But we've got two verbs in this sentence. We got duxerat and we've got demonstrabat. So the question is, which one's the pluperfect? So BA, you probably already notice, is imperfect. So that is not the pluperfect verb. This one here is duxerat. And I'll demonstrate with the principal parts of duco here. Duco, ducere, duxi, and ductus. If you look up the verb ducere in the glossary, this is what you'll see. So maybe you can see from here, duxerat, it's composed of this perfect stem, dux. I can even write it here for you. And it's also, the ending is this erat here. So again, eram, eras, and here it happens to be erat. So I guess I can exchange these amavs for duxes. And that, of course, would change the meaning of the word to led instead of loved. And so that's the word we're looking for. It's enough for me if you identify the verb as the pluperfect and not explaining how all this stuff happens with it. But I will walk you through that so that you can see pluperfect does happen before the action of another verb. So I think that the translation of this will sort of clarify this. So let's do this translation. Eucleides, what was he doing or what had he done? Eucleides had led the boys to the city. Mane means early or in the morning. And he was showing everything to them. So let's write that down. I'm just going to abbreviate. Eucleides had led the boys to the city in the, well, let's just say early, and he was showing everything to them. This is exactly what I'll be doing in 2 weeks, leading a whole bunch of students to the city early and showing them everything in the city of Rome. So you can see that in order for Eucleides to show everything to the boys, first he had to have gotten there. So he had done this before he was showing them everything. I think that's really intuitive and obvious if you think about it. In order for them to be shown everything, first they had to have been led there already. So this is done, had led, before the showing happened. So enough for me here to say had led is the pluperfect verb, and a translation that shows that you get that is enough for me. Let's look at number 2. Aurelia. Aurelia laeta erat quod servi cenam bonam iam paraverant. Now, this erat here is a verb, the imperfect form of sum or esse. Now, so these are used, this eram, eras, erat are used as endings on this verb on this perfect stem. But when you see it by itself, erat, that's really just the imperfect form of sum, and that's covered. I don't know what chapter off the top of my head here, but this is not an ending, so we're not going to say like something like had been. This is just was. And you maybe remember that, seeing erat as was. So Aurelia was happy because the slaves, and yam here I think means already as opposed to now. Aurelia was happy because the slaves had prepared already a good dinner. Canam bonam, a good dinner. So here, paraverant is the pluperfect verb. So if I were to write out those principal parts for para again, they would be this. And again, we start with this third principal part minus the I at the end, and we have parav. And again, onto that stem. I'm going to just copy and paste this. Now you don't leave that dash in there, obviously, but this is to show you again that it's comprised of the perfect stem and these endings eram, eras, erat. So these are the imperfect forms of sum esse, and it's important that you distinguish between them as an ending and just as a verb, because just as a verb, erat means was. That's an imperfect. But as an ending on another verb, it does have this sense of had done something. So Aurelia was happy because, because the slaves had already, or I suppose you could say had now prepared a good dinner. So that's the translation there. Aurelia, I'll abbreviate her name, was happy because the slaves had already prepared a good dinner. Now here, the had prepared is interrupted by this already here, but this is the full verb, had prepared. I'm sure you can, maybe it's not as good grammar, but you could also do it this way. Already had prepared a good dinner. Actually, I'm sure that's fine grammar, really. So already had prepared. So that's the pluperfect form there. Notice had, always had. No getting around that one. Had. I'll say it a million times. So that's 24b, and I'm going to let you work on 3, 4, and 5. Find the pluperfect verb. You can find them by their endings typically, and then they will have a perfect stem in the front of them. Okay? Hope this was helpful, and I will move on to 24d in a minute, which is future perfect tense.